The silence in the house was a living thing, a heavy blanket woven from grief and unspoken words. 3 months. 3 months since the accident. 3 months since David, my David, had been ripped from my life, leaving behind an echo chamber of memories and a guilt that gnawed at my insides like a persistent, unseen rodent. I, Sarah Chen, a freelance graphic designer, had retreated into this house, our house, a self-imposed exile from a world that continued to spin without him. The vibrant colors of my design work had dulled, replaced by a monochrome existence where every day bled into the next. My routine was a fragile shield against the encroaching emptiness. Wake up, make coffee, stare at the blank screen, pretend to work, eat a solitary meal, and then the long, agonizing descent into night. The house, once filled with David's booming laughter and the clatter of his cooking, now only offered the creaks of settling wood and the distant hum of the refrigerator. Each sound was amplified, a constant reminder of his absence. It was a Tuesday, I think, or maybe a Wednesday. The days had blurred. I was hunched over my Wacom tablet, trying to conjure some semblance of creativity for a client's logo, when the shrill ring shattered the quiet. My landline. No one called the landline anymore. My heart leapt, a foolish, desperate hope that it might be David's mother. Checking in? I snatched the receiver, my hand trembling slightly. Hello? My voice was a reedy whisper. Static. A low, guttural hum, like a distant storm. Then, a voice. Not David's mother. Not anyone I recognized. It was raspy, distorted, as if speaking through a broken speaker. Sarah? My breath hitched. It sounded familiar, but impossible. Who is this? I demanded, a cold dread beginning to coil in my stomach. More static, a faint, almost imperceptible sigh. It's me, Sarah. My mind raced. A prank? A wrong number? But the way they said my name. Look, you have the wrong number, I said, my voice firmer now, trying to dismiss the creeping unease. I was about to hang up when the voice spoke again, a little clearer this time, a chilling whisper that seemed to bypass my ears and burrow directly into my brain. Don't hang up, Sarah. Not yet. My hand froze. The voice, despite the distortion, held a cadence, a subtle inflection that sent a jolt of recognition through me. It was David's, or a terrifying mimicry of it. My blood ran cold. This wasn't a prank. This was something else entirely. I stood there, receiver pressed to my ear, listening to the crackle of the line, the phantom echo of a voice that should have been silenced forever. The silence in the house, once a blanket, now felt like a shroud. I slammed the receiver back into its cradle, my heart hammering against my ribs. My hands were shaking, a tremor that spread through my entire body. It was a prank, it had to be. A cruel, sick joke. But who and why? I tried to rationalize it, to dismiss the chilling familiarity of the voice. Grief, I told myself. Grief was playing tricks on my mind, twisting sounds, conjuring ghosts. I paced the living room, the silence now oppressive, filled with the phantom echoes of that distorted voice. For a few days, nothing. I convinced myself it was an isolated incident, a blip in my already fragile reality. I even managed to get some work done. The distraction, a welcome balm. But then, it happened again. Late at night, the phone rang. I stared at it, a morbid fascination mixed with terror. It rang again and again. Finally, against my better judgment, I picked it up. "Hello?" My voice was barely a whisper. This time, the static was less pronounced. The voice, though still gravelly, was clearer. "Sarah, why didn't you answer?" It was David. It was undeniably David. The way he drew out my name, the slight rasp in his tone when he was tired. A wave of nausea washed over me. "David?" I choked out, my voice cracking. "This isn't funny. Who is this?" A low chuckle, devoid of humor. "You know who it is, Sarah. You just don't want to believe it. You're dead," I whispered, tears welling in my eyes. "You're dead, David. I saw you. I buried you." "Did you, Sarah? Did you really?" The question hung in the air, a chilling accusation. Then, a detail. "Remember that night, Sarah? The night before I left? You were wearing that old blue sweater, the one with the frayed cuff. And you were crying, weren't you? About the argument." My blood ran cold. He couldn't have known that. No one knew that. I had been alone in the house, weeping into that worn sweater after our fight. How do you know that?" "I know everything, Sarah. I see everything." The voice was no longer just David's. It was something else, something ancient and malevolent, wearing his voice like a mask. "You blamed yourself, didn't you, for what happened?" "Stop it!" I screamed, dropping the phone as if it were a burning coal. It clattered to the floor, the disembodied voice still echoing from the receiver. I scrambled away, huddling in a corner of the room, my body trembling uncontrollably. This wasn't grief. This wasn't a prank. This was something supernatural, something terrifyingly real. The calls continued, sometimes daily, sometimes every few days, always late at night, always from the landline. Each call chipped away at my sanity, eroding the thin veneer of normalcy I desperately clung to. The voice grew clearer with each call, more like David, yet subtly wrong. It would recount memories, small, intimate moments only we shared. The way he'd always leave his socks on the floor by the bed, the secret spot in the park where we'd carved our initials, the silly nickname he had for me that no one else knew. Each detail was a nail hammered into the coffin of my sanity. I stopped sleeping. The dark corners of the house seemed to writhe with unseen presences. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of leaves outside sent a jolt of fear through me. I started leaving all the lights on, even during the day. My work suffered. Clients called, but I couldn't focus, couldn't create. The vibrant colors of my designs were replaced by a swirling vortex of fear and paranoia. I tried to change my number, but the phone company said it would take weeks. I unplugged the landline, but the ringing persisted, a phantom sound that echoed in my mind, a constant, maddening reminder. I even considered throwing the phone away, but a strange, perverse curiosity held me back. I needed to know. I needed to understand what was happening. One night, the voice was almost perfectly David's. "Sarah," it said, a hint of his old tenderness in the tone. "I'm cold. It's so cold here.
My heart ached with a familiar pain, but it was quickly overshadowed by dread. "Where are you, David?" I whispered, tears streaming down my face. "Here, with you. Always with you." The tenderness vanished, replaced by a chilling, guttural laugh. "You left me, Sarah. You let me go." "No," I cried, clutching the phone. "I loved you. I still love you." "Did you, Sarah? Or did you just love the idea of me? The idea of a life without the burden?" The voice was now laced with a venomous accusation. "You wished me gone, didn't you? Just for a moment, just for a fleeting second after our fight." The words struck me like a physical blow. It was true. In the heat of our last argument, a dark, fleeting thought had crossed my mind. I wish he would just disappear. It was a terrible, momentary lapse, instantly regretted, but it had been there. And now this voice, David's voice, was throwing it back at me, twisting my deepest guilt into a weapon. The house felt colder, the air thick with an unseen presence. I was no longer alone. He was here, and he knew. He knew everything.
The calls intensified, becoming almost constant. The ringing was a persistent thrum in my ears, even when the phone was unplugged. I saw David everywhere, a fleeting shadow in my peripheral vision, a familiar silhouette in the doorway, a whisper of his name on the wind. My world had shrunk to the confines of this house, a prison of my own making, haunted by a voice that was both a comfort and a torment. One night, the phone rang with an urgency that pierced through my delirium. I picked it up, my hand steady despite the tremor in my soul. There was no static this time, no distortion. The voice was crystal clear, as if David was standing right beside me. "Sarah," he said, his voice filled with a profound sadness. "I remember now." My breath hitched. "Remember what, David?" "The accident. It wasn't just an accident, was it? You were right. We were fighting, and I wasn't paying attention. I was so angry, Sarah, so angry at you. And then the truck. I saw it. I tried to swerve, but it was too late." His voice broke, a sound that tore at my heart. "But that's not all, is it? There's something else. Something you've been hiding." A cold dread washed over me, colder than any fear I had felt before. He knew. He knew the secret I had buried deep within my soul, the one that had festered and grown into a cancerous guilt. "What are you talking about?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. "You made a call," he said, his voice hardening, losing its sadness and gaining an edge of accusation. "The call you made just before the accident. You were on the phone, weren't you, Sarah? With him." My blood ran to ice. The truth, raw and ugly, clawed its way to the surface. Yes, just before David had left, just after our argument, I had called Mark, an old college friend, someone I had been confiding in about my marital problems. It was an innocent call, a desperate plea for a sympathetic ear. But in the context of David's death, it had become a monstrous secret.
I had been distracted, my mind on that call when David had stormed out, and then the news of the accident. It wasn't like that, I stammered, tears streaming down my face. It was just a friend. I was upset. Upset enough to distract me, David's voice hissed, no longer sad, but filled with a chilling fury. Upset enough to be on the phone with another man while I drove away angry and hurt. Upset enough to be the reason I didn't see that truck. No! I screamed, dropping to my knees, the phone still clutched in my hand. I loved you. Did you, Sarah? Or did you just love the idea of me? The idea of a life without the burden. The words were a cruel echo of his earlier accusation, but now they resonated with a terrifying truth. You wished me gone, didn't you? Just for a moment, just for a fleeting second after our fight. And your wish, it came true. The line went dead. The silence that followed was not the familiar heavy blanket of grief, but a deafening roar of accusation. The house was no longer just empty. It was filled with David's spectral presence, his anger, his pain, and my overwhelming, suffocating guilt.
I don't know how long I stayed there, curled on the floor, the dead phone still in my hand. Hours, perhaps. Days. The sun rose and set, its light a cruel mockery of the darkness within me. The calls stopped. The phantom ringing ceased. The house was silent once more, but it was a different kind of silence now. A silence that screamed of judgment, of an inescapable truth. Was it real? Was David truly calling from beyond the grave, a vengeful spirit seeking retribution? Or had my grief, my guilt, and my isolation finally fractured my mind, conjuring a tormentor from the depths of my own psyche? I looked at the unplugged landline, then at my trembling hands. The answer, I realized, didn't matter. The terror was real. The guilt was real. And the call, whether from beyond the grave or from the darkest corners of my own mind, had irrevocably changed me. I was no longer Sarah Chen, the grieving widow. I was Sarah Chen, haunted. And the haunting, I knew, had only just begun.
Subscribe to be the first to get a notification when the next video drops, and hit the like button for more tales. Thank you.